Oh, there it goes.
There we go. Okay, we are at the Finance Committee meeting, Monday, January 31st. It's like 7:12. Welcome, people. Just gonna go through this agenda, I guess, first. Public comments. Approval of minutes. Still working on some of the ones I have. Almost done. So maybe next time I'll have the ones from that I was gonna do. I didn't remind John of the meeting, so usually he has an update from the select board, but since he's not here. And then we have a PRF from the Council on Aging. So this is my understanding, this is gonna replace the administrative assistant. So you're changing the position to a program coordinator.
Correct.
And so I'm trying to remember, how do these hours compare to what Darlene had
So she was
before?
working 10 hours a week, we added 4 hours. And
Okay.
increased the wages. Well, we have a range, we were at the PPPB and it was a range between 17 and 20. So we're earmarking about 1850 is what we're going, depending on experience, etc.
Okay. And so, part of this is coming from the town budget.
Do you have the breakdown? Janet did a breakdown of all
I
the
do.
different-
Yeah, that was
Yep.
based on the 1850.
Yeah, so we
like,
got the
which was
Memory
in the
Cafe
middle.
grant from Highland Valley. That's only a 2-year grant, but that is earmarked for staff. So she broke it down for 2 hours out of the Memory Cafe. That position, as Darlene's position does a lot of the scheduling, so we could take it out of the Fritter Grant as well. And of course, the state formula grant. So we have the wages, we won't have to increase wages, we're gonna use what we had from last year, except it'll be less hours, obviously, because they're getting increased pay, hourly rate. So we don't have to break it down completely like this, but this money is available to us.
So what happens when the Memory Cafe money goes away?
So we can, again, take it from the formula grant. There are some program coordinators in other cities and towns that it's paid strictly from the formula grant. So, I mean, wages can come from the formula grant. So this year, we do have this available to us. So, I mean, that's where it would come from. I mean, I foresee that that's where it will come from in 3 years or whenever this grant.
Whenever that one runs out. I guess my only other question is about the Fritter Grants. So previously we took the hours that you were getting paid from there and we moved it to the general fund.
Correct.
So you were still doing all the coordination and everything else. So you're still going to keep those hours even though you're not going to be doing Fritter Grant stuff,
So
or you're going to both be doing Fritter Grant
I
stuff?
haven't, yeah, we've all been doing, who's ever in, even Flo does Fritter, even though we don't take her wages from that, because we have it paid from the grant and from the formula grant. But we have our drivers and we have the ability to use that if we need to. But we haven't had to until now, so I'm hoping that, it'll be available to us. The administrative cost comes from the Fritter Grant too, as you know.
And so, is there someone doing this right now?
Doing what?
Doing this, like as a temporary person, trying to try out to see if
It's a new position.
It's a new position.
It really stemmed from, because of the Memory Cafe, and and you probably know the background, we're developing the House on Aging, and we're hoping for a new center eventually. I mean, it'll be years, but we have monies available from the Parson will. So we're thinking of, developing our program so that when it's time, and we already do have a bigger place, we'll be prepared.
Makes sense. And you were on PPPB to kind of go through the whole initial piece. Did you guys have any concerns or questions, or? I mean, I know John signed it, but.
Yeah, there was nothing, no red flags or nothing that we discussed at the meeting that, I mean, it was John and I and Josie, but she kind of had to abstain.
She had to
from
recluse
that,
herself because she's on the board. But she was helpful. I mean, I had never done scoring before, in the when we felt later that it was scored low, for that kind of a position, but I didn't understand it, and I didn't know really what to push for. But the wage range is about right.
Well, the whole scoring system is so antiquated, and it's just, in my opinion, it's very difficult to go through that and come up with any, but.
Yeah, something that's correct, because it's the same as admin, actually. Depending, it's what is it, a 4 or something?
Yeah,
It's the same as the admin. We were hoping to upgrade that position. Yeah. But anyway, the wages are okay, so, I mean, the wage range.
Yeah, I mean, maybe eventually when you have someone who's doing the job and the center becomes bigger and stuff, you can actually make that person, move that job up or give them, more responsibilities or make a higher grade or whatever, eventually, because.
If you want to visit other senior centers, you're aware about the Parsons. We just found out today it's a minimum of $2.5 million.
No, I don't know too much anything about that,
Well,
so.
we're all waiting because the house sold and it's mostly stock, so they're trying to get a sense of the liquidation. So finally, Janet wrote to Amanda. It was Cheryl Parker, that was the original attorney that was dealing with it, and my understanding is that she hasn't been able to help out for some reason. So Amanda's covering, and she had mentioned, she sent the email saying that the personal property is, most of it's stocks and such. So, but it's all contingent upon us having a plan, a definitive plan, 2 years from the time of his passing. Otherwise,
And when did he actually pass?
April of 2021. So we have until next.
A year and a couple months to get a plan.
Otherwise, the beneficiaries gets dispersed differently. So we've just sort of informally, Leslie and I used to work together, so we went over to see South Hadley last week. A few other people went to check out Hadley, just to get a sense of the senior centers. And while we were there, we just asked about staffing. And Southampton is, you're not going to be surprised to hear, is that the staffing is just so much less than anybody else. But their program coordinators at Hadley and South Hadley both make $22 an hour.
But like in size comparison,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I haven't gotten the tour of South Hadley's new senior center.
Yeah,
but
it's 3 times the population.
Right,
10,000,
right.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it was 10, I think they approved 11 million, but it came in less.
Wow.
Yeah.
But they tore down the building that they had, and then had to rework the site and then built on the same site, so.
Yeah, so we're kind of in the same boat in terms of next steps, but we're waiting to find out what actually is the benefit. And we just found out that it's pretty sizable, so anyway.
Yeah.
But as far as this position goes, I mean, the hope is that we're going to have more robust programming
Right.
and have someone focus on programming.
So I would move to approve the PRF.
All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you. That's something that you both work in cities where they have senior center, newer senior centers. I mean, Westfield has a beautiful one.
Oh, really?
Have you been there? You probably.
I have not gone over there yet.
Yeah.
I did see the new brining machine though at the DPW. They make their own brine they make their own brine to spray on the ground.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Brine.
Wow.
Yep.
How much did that cost?
How much did that cost?
Wow.
And what does brine?
The brine just is a solution that you treat the roads with first, so that if I'm not mistaken, so the snow doesn't stick and stuff.
Oh, that's the stuff that's so horrible for your car. And it will rust vehicles faster than,
Yeah.
yeah.
The other thing they're getting is a snow melting machine, which is pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah, they're renting it, but they're just trying to test it out to a snow melting machine, which is kind of cool.
It is cool, actually.
Because where do you put all that snow?
Yeah, we were just talking about that the other day because my son went to BU and there was a big, huge, massive snowstorm in Boston and we were talking about how they had snow melting machines.
Yep. Yeah, it's expensive, but
Yeah, I bet it is.
for now, they're just renting it just to kind of see how that works, so
Okay, so we're all set?
we're all set.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Especially when it starts at 7, glad that it's short.
Well, it's just by the time we get home and
Yeah.
can get here, then it's, you
Oh,
know.
no, I mean,
Yeah, it's
That's okay. I
hard,
don't
6
have to come
o'clock
very
for the
often.
PPPB is tough.
Yeah. And you just come straight here and then you wouldn't
Yeah.
get home, it'd be 8 o'clock and that's what makes for a long day.
yeah, long day.
Well, that's exciting about
It is exciting.
so hopefully
Yeah, that's awesome.
you guys can figure something out so that it can happen, you know?
Yeah.
And
It's tough when you have this ticking clock, you know, I mean, public safety's been
So-
in place for 20 years and we don't have a building.
Do you think that, is it clearly defined as to what the plan, like, does the town meeting have to happen and be approved?
Well,
to-
that's what's been frustrating about it, because first of all, we don't have a committee yet. But we were talking to Leslie about what Salt Hadley went through, and at what point did you do the feasibility study, and at what point did you form the committee, and who was the chair of the committee, and all of that. Mike Sullivan was a huge help in that, which I'm not sure is the
Well,
position.
and they built that building, that it wasn't a debt exclusion. They
Right.
built that within the capacity.
I know.
And he started putting money away,
Yeah,
like 400,000 a year. Now granted, their budget's much bigger, but he had
yeah,
over $1 million set aside.
I know.
So the budget was already used to what the debt service would be or more. And so we
Right.
have the stabilization fund for the senior center that we didn't even spend all,
I
so,
cannot believe that, and they came in under budget.
yeah.
Yeah, but he was a big driver, which I'm not sure we have, like as much room. But plus, we've been trying to, Dale Cannon is the executor of the estate.
Yep.
And the lawyer switched between Cheryl to Amanda, so we've been trying to what does final plan mean? Like, what exactly? So we're
Right.
trying to get answers, and then today Janet sent out the email because we finally heard from Amanda.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because we knew it was going to be sizable, we weren't sure exactly how much.
Right.
But then if we don't come up with a plan, then the distribution of the will includes a lot more benefactors than just the COA. So that's what, when there's a ticking clock like that, it makes it, a little bit more challenging,
Right.
especially in municipal government.
Right.
Yeah, if you can get that definition of,
Right. Yeah.
final
Right.
plan, like what does that mean, then you can go from
And I've heard
there.
people say it doesn't mean shovel in the ground.
No.
But it doesn't mean having a site and the money for the site, an existing site, whatever.
Right,
So that's
right.
what we have to do is, we have to really put our heads together. But, meanwhile, Amanda's, Dale's in California. So that's the problem. It's like trying to get answers before we can move forward. So we've been just trying to look at other sites and centers and trying to wait to get some more definitive answers. But still, that's really generous, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
We'll see. All right, well, thanks.
All right, take care. Thanks. So where is the Parsons estate? Well, the house that he owned was which sold for $185,000.
Oh, the one on High Street?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then he sold, there was a small piece, it looks like it sold to the house across the street.
Oh, yeah, to the Baldwins. I did see that in the paper.
And then, yeah, I mean, I could ask my mom, I mean, because my mom's father owned the house that John Martin lived in. That's where my mom grew up.
Oh.
That was my grandfather's. He owned all that land. And he
Because-
owned up by Del Nero's up on the hill.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice place.
Not the old house, but up past the dirt road that goes up where the water tower is, and then up beyond that, that was all my grandfather's. But maybe we should shut the thing off. Do we have anything else we need to talk about before I forget that thing.
So the other thing was, which we can't really talk about because again, John's not here and that was my bad. I wanted to go over what their thought was for the budget process, review the expenditures and revenues, and how the going forward with the closing was. But since he's not here to update us, we're kind of...
I did get that email today too from Ed about the draft.
Yep, the draft audit, which, so, the one thing that was in here was, the material weakness was none of the cash and the receivables were reconciled since June of 2020 after I left for 21, so they would have checked to make sure 21s were updated, but none of the cash was reconciled, the accountant and the treasurer, and then the receivables, the tax receivables, liens and all that, those haven't been reconciled since the end of June of 2020. So that was a big weakness. The other piece, which...
So how could they do the audit if that stuff wasn't even done? I mean,
they can do it because it was done through 20. They did 20's audit, not 21's audit. So they did the audit from when I was still here. So they haven't even closed 21 nor have done 21 audit. So this was 20 audit. And then the other piece was talking about the budget process and things weren't recorded in 18 and 19 and 20. And so I have to understand because this was when I was here. And I don't know why they would have went back to 18 or 19 because we had audits already done. And I know there's something that I didn't record for a water project, but I went back and did it later, so I'm not quite sure what they found, and I'm just curious because I'm not sure what did I miss. And capital projects was not something that happened a lot, so you're like, okay, how do I do this? And you do it, and you're like, maybe that's not right. So I knew that might come up, but those are the only, and then the last thing was develop a more formal risk assessment process, which has been on here for a lot of years. That's, I think, under the realm of the town administrator with help from the finance team, but I think that person was supposed to lead that. And it's just kind of just keeps, little bits getting done and then it keeps going by the wayside and little bits getting done. Risk in terms of, making sure you write an assessment, like where could the possible fraud places be? Evaluating places where there could be fraud. I think one of those pieces is when people turn money into the treasurer and then they bring it up to the accountant's office and make sure those all match up, which I did when I was here. I'm assuming it's continuing because that was a big thing, but just other places like timesheets, people can people can do fraud timesheets, bills, people can submit bills, travel, that kind of stuff, I think. But they got to look at what the risks factors are and where they are and then come up with how do you test that so that nothing happens going forward. So, so that's what was on the audit, which wasn't too bad. Curious what 21's gonna look like. The revenue, I would assume that Bradley can put those in.
I mean, we have to have a budget, we have to have an estimated revenues for
Yeah,
these things,
which would
so-
come off of the recap. So,
You know what I mean? It's just hard to know
Yeah.
where we're at percentage-wise when you're just looking at numbers. And you can say, oh, well, yeah, we've collected, 4 million or whatever in real estate, but where are we if we're halfway through the year? What was our projected revenue?
yeah, so for instance, you have interest and penalties and meals tax, and even motor vehicle, you have your budget in here, you can kind of say, okay, meals tax, we did 300, we've only collected 25. Are we gonna collect the rest of that by the end of the year?
Right.
If not, then we can't budget that much for next year.
Well, and just seeing, yeah, where we might be low or where we might be high to kind of
Yeah,
project how we might end the year.
yes. So yeah, that's a piece too. And then I should, one of these days, after I go through this, is send an email to, when I find things that are like, yeah, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense, send it to Brad and Ed to get their answers as to why these are underspent, overspent. There's no budget for the state assessments in here for charter school tuition or anything, so those need to get entered. And there's no budgets in here for, the transfer station. There's only two lines, and there should be indirect costs. And there's no budget, which they could have done ahead of time, for water and transfer station. So maybe whoever this person is that's helping them close the books can maybe help them with that piece.
Do they know? Do we know who that is?
Yes, her name is, because I watched a meeting to find out, she works for Eric Kinshirf, and her last name is Kelly, or her first name is Kelly. But yeah, she works for him, and she's the one who's available to, I don't know how far she's gotten, if she's done anything, so, I don't know what the progress is, but yeah, so whatever that's in the budget, 20, what is it, 41, 438, 40, so whatever that 25,000 bucks, maybe. So, that's all. We'll have to wait and find out about budgets.
All right, well,
7:35.
move that we adjourn.
I second that.